Hello and welcome back to EU Decoded, the podcast from the EPP Group, where we break down the key issues in EU politics. So, in today's episode, we're diving into some of the priorities discussed during this week's plenary session. The key debate was on how Europe could manage migration in a more effective and holistic way. The EPP Group made its position crystal clear once again. When it comes to irregular migration, those who don't have the right to stay in Europe must return to their countries of origin.
Let's embrace the fact that leaders, actually from left-wing to right-wing governments, from east to west and north to south, came together on an idea that more commitments are necessary.
That was Jeroen Lenaers, vice chair of the EPP Group, who shared some eye-opening statistics. He pointed out that in 2023, only 1 in 5 people who were ordered to return to their countries of origin actually did so. That's 350,000 people in total. So to address this issue, the EPP Group is calling for several key steps.
And we heard the numbers, only 20% of those who have no right to stay in the European Union are actually returned, which means we need to step up returns by various means.
As MEP Lena Dupont explained, these crucial steps include stronger cooperation with third countries, full leverage of the visa code, further fight against trafficking networks, and giving Frontex a bigger role. At the same time, EPP Group Vice Chair Thomas Tobe calls for the full implementation of the Migration Pact, one of the major achievements of the last term.
The EPP want to be very clear with what we expect: a speedy and full implementation of the Migration Pact, a new proposal on returns presented within the first 100 days of the next Commission. Increased cooperation.
Talking about increasing safety at the EU's external borders, it's imperative to discuss the situation in Ukraine. This week, the European Parliament approved a €35 billion financial assistance loan for Ukraine, but here's the twist. The repayment will come from Russia. More precisely, from the windfall profits generated by interest on frozen Russian assets. So this means Russia, responsible for so much destruction, will finance Ukraine's recovery. Ukraine needs the EU's unwavering support as its people face the third winter of war. That's according to MEP Sandra Kalniete. This will also be the most difficult winter so far, as Russia has destroyed more than half of the country's energy resources. Ms. Kalniete concludes that Russia must be held accountable and Putin must face the consequences of his actions.
Putin has to pay for the destruction, the war and aggression of Russia caused to Ukraine.
Another key security issue discussed this week was state-sponsored terrorism by the Iranian regime. The European Parliament debated this in response to recent attacks across Europe, including the assaults on Israeli embassies in Copenhagen and Stockholm. And these incidents have raised serious concerns about the growing threat of Iranian-backed terrorism within Europe's borders.
¿Alguien puede dudar que el régimen iraní patrocina, impulsa?
Can anyone doubt that the Iranian regime sponsors, promotes and finances terrorism in Europe? MEP Javier Zazalejos asked this question as he noted the assassination attempt on the former vice president of the European Parliament, which happened a year ago. Iran is Russia's partner in its aggression on Ukraine. It pulls the strings of Hamas and is the master of Hezbollah, says Zazalejos, as he calls for immediate action in declaring the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization. Immediate action is also necessary to combat the crisis in the European steel sector. Right now, the market is unstable. Why? Because it's flooded by cheap materials, mainly coming from China. In addition to that, current trade policies have failed to ensure fair competition. Given the fact that the steel sector is essential to other sectors as well, construction, automotive, renewable energy, it's important to act now. Europe must succeed in making the green steel business model competitive. That's according to MEP Christian Ehler, who calls for targeted measures such as increased investment in physical infrastructure across national borders. And while we're on the topic of China, let's also address its continuous military provocations around Taiwan. During the debate, MEP Michael Gahler wanted to emphasise two things.
One is the call on the PRC to stop their repeated military exercises around Taiwan and the military build-up and the increasingly assertive and aggressive behavior in the South China Sea, not only towards Taiwan. To end the threat of any violent unilateral change of the status quo across the Taiwan Strait.
Gahler also reiterated that no reunification can be possible regarding China and Taiwan because, according to his knowledge, Taiwan has never been part of China. 7 years ago, the world lost a powerful voice in the fight against corruption. Journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia. Her assassination still looms over Malta. And this week, the European Parliament debated the ongoing lack of progress on the rule of law in the country. MEP David Casa reminded us that a public inquiry into the assassination found that the Maltese state was responsible for creating a culture of impunity that made the assassination possible. And he says this culture of impunity persists today.
U sfortunatament dik l-impunità għadha magħna illum.
Despite its public statements, it's obvious that Malta's socialist government has shown discomfort with a free press, often treating it as an obstacle rather than a crucial pillar of democracy. This week ended on a slightly more positive note with the announcement of the winners of this year's Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought. The EPP Group is proud to have nominated the winners, Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado and the president-elect of Venezuela, Edmundo González. They represent the courageous voice of the Venezuelan people in their fight for freedom and democracy. And that is a wrap for this week's episode. To stay up to date with the latest in EU politics, be sure to follow us on social media and check out our website at eppgroup.eu. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time.